Hola amigos, ¿qué tal? Stuart here from Spain Speaks with a Spain news update, and the Spanish government has finally decided that it's time to act and has announced billions of euros in direct and indirect aid, but more about that in just a moment. Firstly, a big thanks to all of the people that left comments on the last video. Lots of comments, lots of debate happening there as usual. Thanks to people that supported the channel through a donation or by buying me a beer or a coffee. Many thanks for that. Thanks to people that bought merchandise, and a big thanks to my patrons on Patreon for your ongoing support. Now, let's get into the news, and as I said, the Spanish government finally deciding to act and announcing measures that it hopes will alleviate the current crisis here in Spain that is devastating the economy. As we can see here, Sánchez announces a €6 billion plan against the crisis and limits on rent increases. After an intense weekend of negotiations and a very long night, the PSOE and Unidas Podemos agreed at the last minute on a package of measures to alleviate the consequences of the war that will be approved tomorrow by the Council of Ministers and will include €6 billion in direct aid, €10 billion in ICO loans, and the tax cuts on electricity that had already been approved by the government, as well as a reduction of 20 cents on fuel for all citizens, not just hauliers, according to the government. In addition, there will also be a measure that was demanded by Unidas Podemos and is very new and probably controversial: a limit for 3 months on a 2% rise in rents. Until the 30th of June, no rent update will be able to exceed this amount, according to Sánchez. So €6 billion in direct aid, €10 billion in government loans, and tax cuts on electricity, and also a 20 cent per litre reduction on fuel for all citizens, and last but not least, the cap on rent increases. So the government going crazy with cash trying to alleviate the effects of this crisis. Now, with this news about aid packages dominating headlines here in Spain today, what's going on with the hauliers strike? Well, as we can see here, platform hauliers continue with the stoppages and ask the minister to guarantee them a minimum profitability by law. The spokesman for the National Platform for the Defence of Road Transport, Manuel Hernández, has called for a new meeting with the Minister of Transport, Raquel Sánchez, to unblock the problem of below-cost contracts for which small hauliers have been on strike for 15 consecutive days. Hernández wants to convey to the Minister of Transport, Mobility and Urban Agenda that they would call off the demonstrations with a royal decree that guarantees them work under a minimum profitability on a transitional basis until the law on land freight transport contracts can be modified, reports EFE from an interview on TVE's 24-hour channel. So there we go. That's what the striking transport workers are asking for. They want the government to guarantee them a minimum profitability by law. And if that happens, they say, they'll end the strike. Now, we all know that Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez left Brussels last Friday a happy man after guaranteeing that Spain and Portugal become an energy island inside the European Union. And as we can see here, Spain's success marks a turning point in EU energy policy. The battle was fierce, with moments of boiling, a multitude of competing interests, and a choreography typical of high-flying European summits, including Pedro Sánchez leaving the negotiating room at the very moment when the decisive points on energy were being discussed. But the EU 27 pact was reached, and the success of Spain, which, along with Portugal, is recognised as the Iberian exception in tackling the scourge of electricity prices, marks a turning point in EU energy policy. The Spanish wedge, which has been calling for changes in the system for months, also opens up the possibility that the entire European electricity market model could be revised. So the Spanish Prime Ministers and the country's success at the negotiating table in Brussels last week, marking a turning point in EU energy policy, according to El País. Now, with the current energy crisis here in Spain, a lot of newspapers are asking the question, why isn't Spain taking advantage of its own gas reserves? And as we can see here in this article from El Confidencial, Spain and its hidden gas, a missed opportunity for energy sovereignty. Energy sovereignty is one of the new buzzwords. Since the Russian invasion of Ukraine, the combination of words is frequently used by politicians of all stripes. But beyond the parliamentary game, the question that arises is whether Spain has the real capacity for self-sufficiency. If we stick to gas, one of the main sources of energy, the answer is simple, but hides some nuances. At present, Spain does not have a single possibility of independence in this respect, but it is no less true that this is not due to the lack of resources. Scientific studies point to the wealth of unconventional hydrocarbons in the Spanish subsoil distributed in different parts of the country, Its possible extraction, however, is nothing more than a utopia. The Climate Change and Energy Transition Law prohibits it. The controversy surrounding fracking is back on the table. So there we go. For some newspapers, it's clear what Spain needs to do to solve its energy problems when it comes to gas. Fracking. Yes, that's right. That controversial word is back on the table here in Spain. But with the Climate Change and Transition Law, which was passed back in 2019, I believe, it ain't going to happen. Now, an update on the health crisis here in Spain, and a new antiviral COVID drug will be available as of this week. As we can see here, Paxlovid arrives in Spain. What is it, and how does this Pfizer COVID drug work? The first tablets of Pfizer's antiviral drug Paxlovid will arrive in Spain on Monday, the 28th of March. The Ministry of Health purchased 344,000 treatments of this drug, of which a batch of 11,900 units will begin to be distributed tomorrow among the autonomous communities. Pfizer's Paxlovid antivirals are administered orally and in pill form. To a greater extent, they are recommended for adult patients who do not need supplemental oxygen but are at higher risk of their disease progressing to severe disease. The company's trials show that its antiviral reduced the risk of hospitalization for COVID-19 patients in 89% of cases, and also reduced the risk of death when administered within days of diagnosis of the disease and the onset of the first symptoms. Now let's have a look at a summary of the health situation in Spain, and we can see the accumulated incidence rate sitting at 461. Hospital pressure remains low at 3.6%, and ICU pressure also low at 5.6%. Now some bad news for the Spanish tourism sector, because apparently people in the UK are choosing Portugal over Spain. As we can see here, UK travellers opting for Portugal over Spain, with the UK scrapping all remaining travel restrictions last week, and many European countries following suit. British travellers are once again preparing for a summer abroad. Analysing millions of data points each month, Vacay's technology has identified Portugal as the UK's third most sought-after holiday destination behind Greece and France, providing a welcome boost to the struggling tourism industry. The stunning beaches, azure waters and limestone cliffs off the Algarve were among the most popular Portuguese attractions, with many Brits planning stays at the region's golf resorts and luxury villas. So UK travellers, according to that data, opting for Portugal over Spain, and Spain now relegated to 4th position on that list after Greece, France and Portugal as popular destinations for UK holidaymakers. Now let's have a look at some of the comments from previous videos. One here from Media on the farming question. I'm only a hobbyist gardener type myself, but I've been looking at a lot of properties for sale in the less urban districts in Spain, and there seems to be opportunities. However, I have a feeling that the Spanish are very protective of their agricultural sector, so there may be issues when it comes to watering rights and that sort of thing. But on the face of it, it looks like buying farmland is possible and also not very expensive. Your Media, thanks for the comment, and thanks for replying to another comment that we saw the other day from a South African gentleman who was asking about farming here in Spain. And you're right, I imagine that there are farming opportunities here in Spain, given the fact that the current crop of farmers seems to be getting old and young people are abandoning rural areas and moving to cities. And as I mentioned in yesterday's live stream, I did an interview a couple of years ago with a Dutch guy called Pascal who bought property in Galicia, and his idea is to turn it into a farm. So getting your hands on farmland here in Spain is possible, and I imagine that it's a lot cheaper than other European countries. One here from Tex: is the Mexican Modelo Negra Dunkel style lager available in Spain? Yeah, Tex, thanks for the comment, and the answer is yes. The beer that you mentioned in your comment, the Mexican Modelo Negra, is available here in Spain, or at least it's available in my local supermarket. And it's one of 5 or 6 Mexican beers that are readily available at supermarkets here in Spain. One here from Erica: milk in Mercadona in Terrassa, no problem, at least in my Mercadona. No problems with dairy products either. Yerika, thanks for the comment, and good to see that you're not having trouble getting your hands on milk or other dairy products in Catalonia. Here in Madrid, it's the exact opposite. Still no milk in a lot of supermarkets, or at least that was the case yesterday. So we'll keep an eye on the transport workers' strike and see if they come to an agreement with the government, and hopefully this strike will come to an end. One here from Jose: read time zones. I wonder whether you are aware that Spain moved to Central European time in 1942. The move was instigated by General Franco to align Spain yet more closely with Nazi Germany. Not a political view, a factual statement. In 2013, a parliamentary commission stated that Spain had been in the wrong time zone for more than 71 years, and for economic and health reasons recommended a return to Western European time. Clearly, that recommendation has been ignored. That explains why it would still be dark at 9:30 a.m. Happy days! Yeah, Jose, thanks for the comment, and also referring to something that was mentioned in yesterday's live stream about how Spain yesterday switched the daylight savings time and we might stay on daylight savings time permanently. I said in my opinion that would be a bad idea because I'm a morning person and I'd like to see daylight before 9:30 a.m. And if Spain did stay on daylight savings time, winter mornings would be very dark indeed until, as I said, around 9:30 here in Madrid. And the reason, as you pointed out in your comment, Spain is currently in the wrong time zone. We should be in the same time zone as Portugal, the UK and Ireland, but mainland Spain is not, only the Canary Islands. And you're right, the Parliamentary Commission's recommendation back in 2013 to change the time has been ignored by successive governments. And what's the reason for that most likely? Ask the tourist industry. One here from Malcolm. Hi from the Asharkia. We had the second Kalima a couple of days ago. It was worse than the first one last week. It rained mud. It's possible we get more Tuesday and Wednesday. If this was an annual event in Spain, I would go back to the UK. LOL. Yeah, Malcolm, thanks for the comment. I did see on the news the other day that Malaga has again been affected by the Kalima, or the red dust that comes from the Sahara. And you're right, combine it with heavy rain and you get mud. But as we know, you guys are desperate for rain down there, and hopefully those dams are filling up. And finally, one here from John. Happy anniversary, Stuart. Yes, it's been 2 years today since we found your vlogs. Thank you for your continued great input. Hopefully we will at last be back in Calpe in June for some well-earned R&R. Please keep up the great work. Yeah, John, thanks for the comment, and you're right, it's about 2 years ago that I started putting out these vlogs on a daily basis. Before that, it was about once a week, once a fortnight, and sometimes even once a month. So I'll thank you, John, for your support, and everybody else out there for your support, and I will continue to make these vlogs on a regular basis. On that note, I'll wrap the video up. Questions and comments, please leave them in the section below. Debate the video out as you normally do. Give it a thumbs up if you liked it, thumbs down if you didn't. I'll see you in the next one. Hasta luego.